Despite losing Matthew Tkachuk and Gustav Forsling in the final 40-plus minutes, the Florida Panthers tilted the ice but lose a heartbreaker late. And now their 11-game road winning streak has come to an end.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Friday, February 23rd edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News. You can follow me on X at Monoman12, follow show account on X and Instagram at LO_FLA Panthers. And shout out to the everydayers who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix. You can follow this show anywhere you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. And thankful, even though it's a loss for the Florida Panthers, a 1-0 shutout loss to the Carolina Hurricanes. Grateful to be once again here on a Fairbanks Friday edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Nich Fairbanks is back here on the show. Nick, welcome back to Locked On Panthers in a game where I would say it's not necessary. I wouldn't call this a feel-good loss for the Panthers by any stretch of the imagination. But I'm not so down in the dumps about this one, where the Florida Panthers tilted the ice in the final 40-plus minutes without Matthew Tkachuk, without Gustav Forsling, and the loads of line combinations we saw on the night. Lundell playing with on Barkov's wing, Carter Verhaeghe playing on the fourth line here and there. Verhaeghe going back to the second line with Bennett and Tkachuk, you name it, and then Oyel Ekblad, you name. It was a lot on the night, and the logging of minutes for Brandon Montour, 28 minutes too. What is your overall assessment on the night for the Cats?
I think outside of the loss, and it's unfortunate that they did lose, it actually showed me much more positive than it did negative, just because it showed me that Carolina barely hung on to win this game without Matthew Tkachuk and Bobby Forsling, that we like to call him, out of the game for 2 periods of the game. So I think a lot has to do with Florida just continuing to play together, not giving up. There was a few instances where they could have won. You talk about the Eetu Luostarinen goal that was called back, Aaron Ekblad hitting the post just before the Aho goal, and it just shows you that this team will battle, and it doesn't matter who's out or who's in. You always got a chance to win.
Yeah, no doubt. And Panthers, they definitely gave themselves the best chance to win. When you think about the shot on goal advantage for the Panthers, 44-29 on the night for the Cats. I mean, the way they protected up the middle as well for the Panthers with very little gaps. Active sticks, especially. I mean, I thought Aaron Ekblad was incredible on the night, especially. Brandon Montour, like we mentioned, the minutes he logged. As far as the power play goes, because of the shakeups and injuries as well, we saw Oliver Ekman-Larsson on power play 1 and Brandon Montour on power play 2 as well. There, where with Tkachuk missing and all, you want guys who could move the puck a little fast on that second unit as well. That's why I believe Paul Maurice did make that switch on the double minor that the Carolina Hurricanes committed on that high stick on Nick Cousins by Jordan Staal, but also just the fact that it's already tough enough to play 11 F7D when you have an odd number on the forward lines, but it's a little harder when the odd number is 11 forwards and 5 defensemen as well when it comes to that. And the fact that the Panthers, they didn't get a too many men call on the night too is also a very you gotta give credit to the coaching staff on the communication there, and everybody just yelling out their assignments of who's going to go where on X time on the ice as well. So that's really the impressive thing about this when you lose two guys of the caliber of Tkachuk and Forsling.
Definitely. And, when you have to put your lines in a blender, I think I read somewhere that Lomberg, Barkov, and I forget who the other person was on the wing. You'll never see that line ever again. It just goes to show that this team has depth and that they can put anybody anywhere and they'll play and they'll make an impact. I will say this, and I know I am the president of this fan club. Anton Lundell looked like a man again tonight, and he has for the past 2 weeks, which is great to see. I thought he was more noticeable than Barkov tonight, as far as like trying to make plays and make things happen. But, at the same time, when Paul Maurice has to switch the lines like that, and you have to put players together that haven't really played together, I mean, that's basically the essence of their game. They have to dump the puck down to win battles. And they did that pretty much all game. They didn't give Carolina a lot of room. They controlled the neutral zone for the most part. And Bob did his job. So can't really say much more. And I'll leave it at this. We didn't lose that game. Paul Maurice probably.
Kind of mocking Rod Brindamore on that when it comes to not getting swept.
That's an all-timer.
And what happened after the final buzzer as well, them getting into the face of each other. I mean, think about back in the postseason. I mean, there was a 0-0 game, and then the Panthers score on the power play thanks to Sam Reinhart in Game 3 as well. So this is not unfamiliar territory for either of these teams, going back to last season's matchup as well. And just when you think about the multitude of scores for the Carolina Hurricanes as well, which multiple 10 goal double-digit scores for them, and really all the issues that they fixed throughout the last few weeks from their blue line and their goaltending as well. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is playoff hockey at its finest, and they said it a lot. This word on the broadcast a lot, and I'm gonna bring that word here: battle. It really came down to battling for who. And I tweeted this. I believe it was in the middle of the second period. Whoever scores the first goal wins. And then I looked back. Someone replied to it after the game. I'm like, damn it. It had to be the one with 19 seconds in, shortly after Aaron Ekblad hits the post. And then Svechnikov gets a shot blocked. And then Sebastian Aho scores top shelf. Bar down, excuse me, on Sergei Bobrovsky with 19 seconds left. Just a bummer. A lot of posts were hit. There was one there was one post where I'm blanking on the there was multiple posts and crossbars on one of the power plays that they had. Etu drive hits the post, and on that same one, Barkov is fed on the right flank, and his wrister hits the crossbar and then goes to the netting. It's just like, man. But also that goes to show that the goaltenders are taking away the position, the angle that gets them that open net as well. So we say, thank the posts are there, but also credit to the goalies for not getting those pucks through the open net. And there's also one chance by Evan Rodriguez on a little tic-tac-toe by him and Lusterinen that it looked like it went in. I was yelling goal, and then that one just does not get into the back of the net. Tough one for the Panthers. And you see 0 points on the night, but it really, again, it didn't feel like they deserved the 0 points.
No, definitely not. And that's the beautiful thing about this game. And, I will give Rod Brindamore credit. All the last games besides the first game of the season against Carolina have all been really tight, really close games. They could have gone either way. So I understand completely what he was trying to allude to last, in the playoffs last year. But I also alluded to you in your tweet saying the team that scores the first goal is going to win. There's a 50-50 there. And that's all this game was. So Florida just came out at the short end of it, which is fine. But again, I think if you look at it on the whole, I think you can take a lot more positives out of this.
Yeah.
I won't probably get into a lot of other ones just because I don't want to speculate about the injuries right now. But let's just say Vegas might not be the only one trying to take advantage of cap circumvention. But again, I don't want to say that those players are going to be out long term.
Yeah, and that's referring to Mark Stone, who's now on LTIR for the Vegas Golden Knights. So still early to tell whether the Panthers will go that route, in fact. But we're going to transition over to segment number 2, where we're going to discuss our 3 stars and when we thought this game was lost. We're going to discuss that and more here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. And we are in the search for better. And with Indeed is your hiring and matching platform with over 300 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications, preferences every day, Indeed is the matching engine that is constantly learning from your preferences. So the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join the more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. The listeners of this show can get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Locked On Sports Today is the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and it's also available on the Amazon Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV's channel app. Here back on this Fairbanks Friday edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Fairbanks Friday edition of the show. The Florida Panthers lose 1-0 with 19 seconds left in regulation. And for this one, Nick, as far as it's funny because the last time the Panthers lost a hockey game just a few weeks ago on a Tuesday against the Philadelphia Flyers, which not only the 11-game road winning streak is over, the 6-game winning streak is over for the Panthers overall. So it's funny because part of you wants to choose 3 duds of the game for this one, but I'm gonna go with stars on this one because the Panthers gave themselves every single chance to win. But first star is Pyotr Kochetkov, facing 44 shots, none of them going in. Sebastian Aho with the game winner. And the third star for me is Brandon Money Montour. Shout out to Kirby Lupal on that nickname. 28 minutes and played in all situations for the Cats and was definitely needed on the night. And also credit to honorable mentions is Carter Verhaeghe, Sam Bennett, Sam Reinhart. All 3 of them had at least 6 shots on goal on the night as well. Ulrich Larson, another honorable mention, which those first 16 games of him being on that top pair has really paid dividends in the season that has been for the Florida Panthers as well. So this is why you built what you did in the first 16 games to get to this point and to have the embarrassment of riches as far as the depth for the Panthers. As far as that, where, like we said, Josh Mahura, a guy who played all 82 games in the postseason, he's the one, just unfortunately the odd man out. So this is why you get the depth that Bill Zito got during the offseason. How about your 3 stars of the game?
I'm gonna have to go with Kochetkov, number 1. I'm gonna make Sergei Bobrovsky number 2 because without him in the first period and also that Scorpion save, This game would
on
have been
Natchez.
over long before. Yeah. Best save of the night. And then third, I'll give it to Sebastian Aho. That was a beautiful shot to end the game, bar down. And, honorable mentions. I'll do Eetu Luosterainen and Lundell, just because I felt like they were the best line outside of, before Tkachuk got hurt in that second line. And then, I felt like the whole defense did well. I don't think that they really made, glaring mistakes. And, they played it tight and they didn't let Carolina have anything. So I'll do that as an honorable mention.
Yeah, and Sergei Bobrovsky, that save on Marty Natchez, because that's not the first time that Sergei Bobrovsky has had a big save on Marty Natchez. It's funny because I tweeted these words for a reason, because when Sergei Bobrovsky stopped Marty Natchez on that breakaway in game 1 with 7 minutes left in regulation, I said, remember that save? I wanted to do the same thing again tonight, just hoping that we would come back to that moment and say that was the part where we thought the game was won or lost there as well. But unfortunately, the Panthers did not win this game, which is a good segue to the part when we thought this game was won or lost for the Cats. And for me, it was the Florida Panthers' inability to convert on their 4-minute power play, which Jordan Staal hits Nick Cousins up high. The Panthers are given a double minor. The Carolina Hurricanes are given a double minor after originally not called, and Nick Cousins is gushing with blood on the near side half wall as well, and just the inability to find a way to convert, and the amount of times they crashed the net as well, the amount of zone time too. Just the inability to convert there is my moment where I thought this game was lost for the Panthers. How about you?
So I'll answer mine in just a second, but I thought it was actually kind of interesting that they decided to review that play and actually call it, because there was a play, I believe, in Game 3 or Game 4 of the Eastern Conference Finals where they basically almost had the same thing. There was a high stick at the other end of the ice, and a Carolina player took the brunt end of that, and it was like literally, like, it was really bad, and they didn't call anything. They didn't review it, nothing. So again, I'm just really surprised that they decided to go back and do that. But as far as when I thought this game was won or lost, Luosterainen's goal being called back. I felt like it was that late in the game, and that was the opportunity. And as soon as the Panthers, if that went through, that they're going to lock it down. Unfortunately, I think since it was called back, they had to open up a little bit more, and they just weren't able to get one past Kochetkov. And it sucks to say, but at least it's a regular season game.
Yeah,
it's not a playoff game.
Yeah, and that's a few minutes right before Aho scored, and just Mikkola jumping up in the play, and then that beautiful feed. Even though it's called back, we gotta appreciate the feed that Mikkola got on that centering to Luosterainen. And let's also not forget there's a centering feed that Sebastian Aho did not convert with an open net.
Yeah,
Sergei Bobrovsky was way to his right, and I'm like, okay, that and even before Goldie said they're gonna review this one, I'm like, is that the moment when we thought this game was won or lost? I'm always thinking about that constantly throughout the game. Like, is this that for the Panthers or the opposition? Also, speaking of Mikkola, early in the game, him and Brett Pesce were pushing back and forth, and Mikkola had a little bit of blood in his coming out of his lip. Not as much as Nick Cousins, but nothing called on that one early in this one. But very as far as the game goes, I mean, not a lot of penalties, a lot of 5-on-5 play, 51 minutes of total 5-on-5 play, 51-38 to be exact, for the Panthers. So honestly, pretty even out game. I mean, the style of play. I mean, the forwards on both teams are fast. They're in on the forecheck. They close gaps. I mean, listen, it just goes. It's the same thing we said last season. These teams are just built so similarly. So whenever you see the stats of goals against being on the top 3, special teams being on the top 3, especially both with penalty kill. It's to no surprise that a game like this ended up 1-0, especially with the low scoring games that we saw in games 1 and 2 last postseason. How those turned out.
For sure, and they let the boys play. I'll be honest. I thought the Kulikov penalty was a little soft compared to what was going on during the game. Unfortunately, he got called for grabbing or holding, and yet, they had to review the Cousins play to get a double minor on that one. So I'm glad they did let him play. I wish more refs would call it that way. I think you do get a much better game, and you get the teams a little bit more heated or more riled up. And to me, it's just a better overall product. Instead of just, like the Pittsburgh Penguin games that we've had earlier this year where the Panthers were called for 8 and 9 penalties. It's just like, okay, so what are we doing here? You're just going to call every single time a guy gets hit, on the shins. So overall, was really pleased with that part of the game. I do wish that they did convert on the 4-minute power play, but, Kochetkov, as you said, was playing the angles the right way.
Mm-hmm. Definitely well sound in his crease as well. So this is one that you, like you said, it's a regular season game. You turn the page, and a big opportunity coming this weekend, which before we talk about the weekend, we are going to provide you guys with an injury update to Gustav Forsling and Matthew Tkachuk in the third and final segment. We're going to discuss that here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Ibotta. And grocery bills are so expensive these days, but now they don't have to be. Start getting cash back on your grocery shopping with the free Ibotta app and get cash back every time you shop. Do you love making money, but also love spending money? Don't we all? Now you can make money while you spend money every time you shop with Ibotta. Ibotta is the free app that gives you the most cash every time you shop on hundreds of items, from groceries to beauty supplies to toys, so you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. The average Ibotta user earns $256 per year. That covers the total cost of an entire shopping trip. So you can buy that flight you've been eyeing, that game you've been dying to go to, or the fancy dinner you've been craving. Join over the 50 million users and earn cash back every time you shop with over 2,700 brands and retailers, including Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, and more. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta by using code LOCKEDONHL when you register. Go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash back and use code LOCKEDONHL. That's Ibotta in the Google Play or App Store and use code LOCKEDONNHL. Third and final segment here on this Friday, February 23rd edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on the Fairbanks Friday edition of the show. So, Nick, wanted to wait until a little bit after the media availabilities as well. And usually during post-game shows, I don't refer a lot of the media availabilities unless A, I'm in the building for the game, or B, injuries, because that's those. I want to save those for days after, obviously. But with the updates for today on the injuries, which the Panthers played 40 plus minutes without Tkachuk and Forsling, which Forsling left with like 6:57 left in the first, and Tkachuk's was about like 150, which the Panthers iced the puck. And also, Matthew Tkachuk, it looked like he grabbed his chest area.
Yep.
On the bench when the referee was trying to get him back on the ice after the Panthers iced the puck. So don't want to speculate here. But Paul Maurice did say day-to-day. But you have to take that with a little bit of a grain of salt because we've seen day-to-day go to a week. Example, Barkov. We've seen that multiple times with him. So day-to-day is the status for Matthew Tkachuk. And Paul Maurice did say that they will both be reevaluated tomorrow. But just got an email from the Panthers PR department announcing the practice schedule for tomorrow. Earlier this week, the date said TBD, but they just sent an email saying that the Panthers will not practice tomorrow. And they will have a 9:30 morning skate on Saturday. So they will be the Panthers will be in the building tomorrow at Fort Lauderdale more than likely, but not in a practice setting. So gonna see the doctors, gonna get checked, but the public won't know anything until we have that question mark in our brains. Are they gonna hit the ice for morning skate when they face the Washington Capitals? Which the Panthers, they have a big opportunity in this big 3-game homestand. 3 teams that are outside of the postseason, and Washington, they just lost TJ Oshie tonight in Tampa Bay. Lower body injury. Didn't look so good. Had to be helped off the ice. Couldn't put weight on his leg. And they're without Nick Dowd as well on the night. Yeah, Alexander Ovechkin's hot as of late, but still big opportunity despite everything that's going on for the Panthers.
Definitely, and I will say this: I'm a little bit more concerned about the Forsling injury because it seems like nobody knows when it happened or what happened. We at least saw Tkachuk get hit. We know where and what he was clutching. Nobody knows what happened to Forsling or why he went off. And he's been arguably the Panthers' best defenseman this season. Always in, always gutting it out. And I just wonder, maybe he's just like, hey, we should do this as a precaution. But I would really like to hear exactly what happened and exactly why they decided to keep him out. But as far as the Washington Capitals go, it's always a tough game with them. I mean, they took care of Tampa tonight. I mean, who hasn't been able to take care of them lately? I mean, Florida did. I'm pretty sure, the Hurricanes did. It seems like Tampa's really on the wrong end of things right now. But you can't count Ovechkin out. He's hot right now. He's started his goal scoring in the second half against Florida. And you still have other players there. I mean, you have Anthony Mantha, who's rumored to possibly get traded, but he's playing some of his best hockey with the Capitals right now.
Michael is another one.
Exactly. And I think that they have Albel there that's actually starting to turn it on. I think he's one of their prospects. So he's definitely trying to, make an impression on that team. But again, this is the NHL. You can't take any team lightly, and you just got to take care of business. And, we'll find out more on Saturday if they're going to be without Forsling and Tkachuk. And if that's the case, does Florida call somebody up?
Nicholas Obe Kubel, Stanley Cup champion, who played for the Colorado Avalanche just a few years ago, was a waiver claim by the Washington Capitals as well. But I'm looking at Alexander Ovechkin and his game logs specifically. Just goes all the way back to the Florida game, but actually before that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it's 8 goals in his last 9. That's the number that it is right now for Ovi. So just a few weeks ago, we were saying the Great Chase might be over, but the Great Chase is back on for Ovi. And I don't know what the exact number is as far as average that he'll need to get past 892. Right now it says 838. Whatever 838 minus 892 is, and then you divide that by whatever the amount of games left. But still, the chase is certainly on for him and for him to break that record as well. So we just gotta hope now for the Panthers that everybody's healthy, because the Panthers are as comfortable as can be as far as standing wise. And just a quick update before we get out of here, because the Boston Bruins are on the second end of a back-to-back in Calgary, and looks like that they are down 2-1 in the second intermission. So as we wrap this up, we're going to watch the third intermission, and by the time this drops, you guys will know what that score is for that. But Nick, I want to thank you so much once again for joining me on this edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Unfortunately, the Panthers do get shutout. It's still I did not. It's still weird saying that for a game like this,
Eh.
even though the Florida Panthers had the ice tilted in their favor, 0 points, but not a discouraging one for sure. And March 14th, mark your calendars, everybody. That's the next matchup between these two teams on a Thursday night, which will be a Fairbanks Friday the next day. So that one should be fun. So any final thoughts before we get out of here, my friend?
Yeah, so I'm just going to reiterate, the Panthers didn't lose. They didn't get shut out. And then on top of that, Armando, thank you again for having me on again. Again, it's been fun all season. And, we'll see what happens on March 14th. There might be a few fireworks going off.
Possibly. But thank you so much as always, Nick. And I will see you next time, my friend, as we will be doing next week's podcast on Leap Day, February 29th. So see you on Leap Day, my friend.
Right. Leap Day, Fairbanks Friday. I love it. See you next week.
And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey with Flip Livingstone and Steve Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez with Nich Fairbanks, and you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're your team every day.